Good morning, scholars, and welcome to our Tuesday video. This will be part 2 of chapter number 4, Planning a New Constitution. If you haven't watched our previous video from yesterday, please make sure you review it in the YouTube channel UPAS4. Let's begin. Okay, scholars, we're going to have the same objective of the day, which is I can summarize the events leading up to the Constitutional Convention. In our previous episode, we talked about the Articles of Confederation. We talked about that some people were aiming and starting to talk about changing this type of Congress of government, of central government, because they were not so well for them. It was a weak central government. So people start talking about that and start making and aiming for changes. So today we're going to explore what other things were happening in the United States along with the discussions of making a new constitution, possibly a new constitution. So scholars, let's remember that our main concept for chapter number 4 is constitutional convention. That's the main focus for this unit and what we are going to be learning today and that we learned yesterday. So make sure you're thinking as you read and complete your packet. What is the Constitutional Convention? One of the things that we saw in page 29 of chapter number 4 is the Northwest Ordinance, and you also have it here in your packet. Scholars said, people that had studied American history, they said that one of the best decisions that the Congress made under the Articles of Confederation was the 1787 Northwest Territory Ordinance, or the Northwest Ordinance. Let's remember from our previous chapter that an ordinance is a legal action of government, it's a legal rule, it's a legal norm, something that people need to follow and complete. And let's remember, scholar, that is in your neighborhood, you find an ordinance, make sure to share it with me so I can make a collage with all of these ordinances in our neighborhoods. So it's important for us to see that we have here the original 13 colonies. And let's remember that this Northwest Territory, especially the Ohio Valley, we can see around here, the Ohio Valley, was where the 7 Years' War was fought between the French and the British troops. Let's remember that this area was mainly for Native American tribes, and some of the French people were working there to get some beaver pearls, some beaver fur that they could sell. So that was the main area for conflict. Let's remember, scholars, that here we have the Appalachian Mountains and the south of Ohio, and we have also the Ohio River. So that's why it was challenging for people to move to this territory. It's not like when we think about the Great Plains, like Kansas, Iowa, Kansas City, etc., those central states. It's very easy for people to move as they're just plain areas. But here we're talking about some rivers and mountain chains. So the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 start thinking and start moving, allowing people to move into this territory. So what is the importance of this territory, scholars? Here we can see how the United States grew. We could see that this part by 1783, the United States was growing. The United States was growing in space. Here we could see in this image. It was annexing new territories. In our next unit, we are going to talk about what the Louisiana Purchase, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about how the United States ended having all the territory that we know today. But this, scholars, is a perspective of how the United States was growing, and we can see the government didn't control a lot of territory at the beginning. It was just the East Coast mainly, and the inner part, the Midwest, all the Rocky Mountains, all the Southwest, all the West Coast, it was unexplored. Then presidents will send Lewis and Clark as the famous explorer to go to Oregon County country to explore what is there. They knew there was land, but they didn't know what resources they could find. So this is the scholars a way in which people were living in the East start moving to the West. Moving on. So as we see, the Northwest Ordinance create new states. It create Ohio in 1303. It create Indiana in 1816. It create Michigan in 1837. It create Illinois in 1818. And it create Wisconsin in 1848. And as we can see here, some parts of Minnesota were starting to get colonized by people. So how these territories became states? How is that people could move and just became a state? So let's explore that part. So first of all, scholars, what the Northwest Territory is what we call now the Midwest, is what we call now the Midwest. So all this area is all this highlight green area is what we are now calling the Midwest. And this is where we live. We live in the state of Ohio. How can you become a state? First of all, you need at least 70,000 settlers, so people living in this area. Second, you need religious freedom, the right of trial by jury, free access to major rivers of the region. So people need to still have that right established that we discussed before, that those rights were very important for people to have. Also, it bans slavery north of the Ohio River. The Ohio River, I'm gonna go back a second. The Ohio River, scholars, is the river that goes through all the borders of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. It's a border that doesn't allow, that borders these Midwest with the central states. So they decide that no state created north, so these 5 ones or 6 we would count Minnesota, they will not have slavery. That's a big change, because remember, scholars, that slavery is a big part of what was going on in America at this time. Also, township, it needs like 6 square miles, so we can see how it should be organized. And yes, especially these ways to become a state. So Ohio becomes a state. I want to wait here for a second, scholars. So we talk a little bit about Ohio becoming a state. We can see that Ohio, it's stipulated that Ohio celebrates, the state of Ohio celebrates Ohio statehood on March 1st. The reason for this is because the Ohio General Assembly met for the first time on this day in 1803. In reality, Ohio became a state on February 19, 1803, when President Jefferson endorsed the United States Congress decision to grant Ohio statehood. This information was retrieved from the amazing website of the Ohio History Connection. I will leave the link in the description so you can access and explore more information, scholars. So here we can see the flag of our state that is currently also everywhere that we go, like the State House. We see this great seal of the state of Ohio that, remember, scholars, when we went to visit the State House, we saw it on the floor, and when we were looking up on the ceiling, we saw it up in the glass that was decorated. So that was very important for us to see. And here we could see, we pay a little bit attention to the Great Seal of the state of Ohio. We can see the Ohio River, we can see some mountains, so the Appalachian Mountains, and also some flat areas. That means that this was a state with a lot of available land for farming. So that's why a lot of people start moving into the state, because they had access to these resources and it was not too expensive to get land. So the new states in the Union, scholars, as we said, I will repeat it one more time. We got Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and parts of Minnesota. What is interesting about this Northwest Ordinance is that it allowed people to settle in this territory, and after reaching a certain amount of people, 60,000, it could become a state with equal rights than all the other states. So this means scholars that they had the same rights of people in Virginia, in Carolina, in Georgia, in New York, in New Jersey. So people here in this area will become as equal as other in the original 13 colonies. So that's huge, because it's telling people that they are equals with their peers. They are not second level citizens, they are first level citizens, so they have the same legal rights. Also, scholars, I want to stop here for a second, because I know that in our chapter we are talking about changes that Madison want to have, and about the Northwest Ordinance, but it's important, scholars, for us to see this interactive map. We can see here, scholars, how states with slavery and without slavery start to change. First things first is that the slavery debate in America. Let's remember that Thomas Jefferson said that all men are created equal. That's in the Declaration of Independence. And we can see now territories in the Northwest area, they did not have slavery, but in the South, there were other states that had that type of economic production. So there was starting a big debate between states in the North and states in the South. And why is that, Mr. Daza? Why it was so important, this debate? Because of power. Because state owners were saying, okay, are we counting slaves as part of the population? Are we getting more representatives into Congress because we have slaves? So this was a very interesting way for them to argue about what to do. This is something, scholars, that then, as we see in this interactive map that is projecting here, we could see how the North and the South will become more and more divided about the question of slavery. That's what, in the end, will become the reason for the Civil War that we're going to explore later, or in 5th grade in other units. Scholars, as we saw in chapter number 4 in our reader, there were two people, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, that they were raising their concerns about the Articles of Confederation and about the central government. They realized that its government was very weak, that it did not provide enough support and power, that it had not autonomy against the states. So they were really good advocates about changing this. So James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, they were both participants and elected by their states to participate in the Constitutional Convention. So what did Alexander Hamilton and James Madison believe? Well, they want a central, strong government. First, they believed that the Articles of Confederation were not working well. They saw the struggles, they saw that they were always bankrupt, they saw the lack of central government and power, so they say we need to really rethink our ways. Second, they believe that Congress needed more power, more authority to be effective. You cannot be effective if you rely on the will of the states. Let's remember, scholars, that in this time there's no president. We don't have a president of the United States yet. The first president, George Washington, was elected in 1789. So that's 2 years after they become the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Third, central government should not depend on the states' will and power. We see it now. The federal government, ahead of President Trump, they can make decisions. They raise money through taxes. They also have the National Guard. They have their army. They can make decisions that can affect the states if they need to go into make laws or decisions like now that we're seeing with coronavirus. They're trying to create this economic policies to help people that are losing their jobs, and that's a way in which the central government is trying to help each person in the states. So this didn't exist back in the Articles of Confederation with the Congress. The Congress was very, very weak. Then the central government should have the power to raise money and create an army. Let's remember what we read in chapter 1 and 2, that when Congress was asking for money, some of the states maybe send them $5 out of $100, and that's not a way in which you will be able to support all the things that a central government needs to do. That's not a way in which you can guarantee defending people from invasions, defending people from external governments, giving them roads, creating schools, hospitals. That's not a way, because you're always bankrupt. So a lot of people were starting to see this as a big, big problem. So the Constitutional Convention of May 1787 is very important for American history. Why? Because, as this is quoted from a reader, it will settle forever the fate of Republican government. It will forever settle if there are government. And what is a Republican government, scholars? You may think, Mr. Daza, I don't remember what is that. Let's remember that a Republican government is one in which the people, directly or indirectly, are the ultimate source of authority, electing representatives to make laws that serve their interest and advance the common good. So this is a way in which we are talking about a central government with 3 branches of power, as we have now in America. But back then, there was nothing like this. So if this fails, it could have ginormous consequences for republicanism in the future. What could be those consequences? First, the belief that ordinary people could govern themselves. Let's remember, scholars, that before the American people gained independence and start thinking about electing representatives to govern, to rule for them, there was always a king or a parliament, but mainly kings and queens that were making all decisions. We saw that in dynasties of China, we saw that in medieval Europe with Charlemagne, and all the different people that we study. We saw that a little bit with Islam, and we were looking at with the American Revolution, when King George III, he was making all the decisions with his will, imposing taxes on the colonies. So if this fails, scholars, that will mean that ordinary people like farmers, people, shoemakers, like ordinary people, not people from the elite or noble people, could not govern themselves. That will have sent a powerful message that you always need a class ruling over others. And also scholars, if this American experiment failed, it will be a long time before anyone else in the world will be willing to try a Republican government again. That means that people will not be exploring this, because they say, why are we going to try to be independent and rule ourselves if things fail in America? Also, scholars, I want to show you how was the government in Europe. At this time, all of these countries in Europe, they were ruled by kings or emperors. We are not talking about presidents. We are not talking about prime ministers. We're not talking about nothing democratically elected. Europe was cautiously looking at the American experiment. They were keeping an eye on America to see if common people could and would rule themselves. So if America failed, it will give European monarchies more reason for them to believe that people require the hard power and ruling of a king or an emperor. Also, scholars, don't forget to review the complementary video in the description about making of the American Constitution by Judy Walton. You will find the link in the description so you can watch it once we are done with this lesson. Have a great day. So this is the end of chapter number 4, scholars. Please make sure that you're reviewing the videos many times as you need, that you're reading the reader, that you are completing of your work. And please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I hope all of you have a wonderful Tuesday, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in our YouTube videos. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.